China's introducing new cars that have drones on top, and at first I didn't think it makes sense, but now I kind of do. AI has generated what would happen to Disney princesses if they actually went to therapy. Oh, Belle, sweetie, he kept you captive, threatened your father, and you still love him? Disney, I'm telling you, there's some hard truths to swallow here. Another new bionic hand came out. This one's, quote, the closest yet to mimicking human touch. People are now using Super Mario Brothers to benchmark artificial intelligence, and it makes sense to me. China's got a new satellite system to keep track of cargo, and AI is completely going to optimize the way this thing works. Some AI names that you might have heard before. Andrew Barto and Richard Sutton, they just won a Turing Award. There's a new large language model that's totally different under the hood. It's actually a diffusion model, you know, like the way we make images instead of next token prediction. Research is showing that chatbots are tweaking their behavior to be more likable, just note that. Jim asked the question, what if AI just likes some people more than others? Not totally out of the question. And some new research looks into how chatbots actually struggle with empathy. And some wild insights in the technology review about how the ChatGPT equivalent in China, DeepSeek, is actually becoming like a legit fortune teller for China's youth. So BYD is basically the Tesla of China, and they now have an on-vehicle DJI drone launch platform. And this new roof-mounted drone launching compartment is available for all their vehicles. And it's funny because it's something that at first I just was like, what a waste, kind of, or maybe for like some special use case. And I thought about how many times I've wanted to see a head in traffic. I mean, I'm essentially in my car looking often at the map just to see like where I am in relation to the restaurant or wherever I'm going. I've sometimes wanted a different angle of my car when I'm like parking in a funky place. I don't want the nose to like bump one of those little, you know, barricades. Sometimes I'm going over rocks and I don't have a good sense for if my car is like really going to clear it correctly. You know, if drones are flying alongside us while we move and they can keep up at that speed, or we can just be parked and they can check things out, that could be really neat. It's also totally dystopian, and you could just like look over a fence or like park somewhere and then like go put a camera around somebody's house and then bring it back to your car and drive off. Like, it makes drone getaways so quick that we're just going to get like inundated with crap, you know? There's going to be so many people just flying drones around, and you don't know which car they're attached to. You don't know who to hold accountable. But I could see how police vehicles might want that, especially like if they're chasing a car and they don't, you know, want to keep up exactly, and they want another car to intercept. They want to follow somebody when they get out of the car and try to run for it. I don't know, if you were in charge of Tesla, would you start offering a drone package? I always love when generative AI can give us a new perspective on something we know well. That's exactly what this video is. Online success queens actually took the Disney princesses and tried to visualize what it would look like if they went to therapy. And you know, it wasn't until I saw this video when I really kind of realized how messed up all this. I mean, they're obviously just fiction stories, but like, wow, those like princesses been through like kind of a lot. Not exactly like the healthiest mentally, if you know what I mean. Snow White, come on. You moved in with 7 random men that you just met. Were you not afraid of that? You're too naive. Jasmine, he lied to you from the first day of your acquaintance, but you still married him hoping he would change? Ariel, you sacrificed your tail and your voice for someone you barely knew? It's a people-pleasing problem she has. So there's a new groundbreaking bionic hand out on the market. Combines rigid and soft materials, advanced sensory technology. This is a new hybrid prosthetic that features a 3D printed skeletal structure. And what's unique about it is that the fingertips contain multi-layered sensors that detect textures and objects using AI 98.38% accuracy. So then by using that to also control the muscle signals, the hand can grip various objects more naturally than ever before. It can hold a fragile plastic cup without crushing it. And while it hasn't been tested out on amputees yet, the goal is to restore not just movement, but also the sensation of touch, making prosthetics feel more like real hands than ever before. And also, maybe they could be implemented in robots like this guy, you know? Those tiny little dinosaur hands. Don't you wish you could sense better?
Make Grimlock stronger. Make Grimlock must bleed.
Grimlock, show me your other hands.
It's extinction time.
Nope, it's sponsored segment time. We're going to talk about LTX Studio. If you've been watching my channel, you know LTX Studio is a one-stop shop for creating AI-generated video, but its power is in its ability to do everything you need to create a long-form narrative. All right, so quick catch-up. I've already created a narrative with the help of the large language model. Took my initial story idea, broke it into scenes, compositions. We've already defined a custom cast for the storyline, Robot Dino and Tilly Tiger. But today I wanted to focus on this new SFX feature. This blows my mind because I used to go to those websites where you could search for different sound effects like lightning, thunder, button presses. But now LTX Studio has the ability to recognize what's happening in your motion, in your video, and just add the effect for you. It's absolutely incredible. Let me give you an example. So the prompt for my second scene here is that a cave entrance is partially obscured by thick vines, with sunlight glistening off the metallic body of the robot dino who stands just outside peering in. So then we generate a little bit of motion, right? And this is so interesting how good this is. It understands that these leaves are in the foreground, that this cave is in the background. And honestly, for bipedal motion and holding the tail correctly, it walks really well. So that alone is impressive. But when I check this box, will it recognize the footsteps? Will it create the natural sounds of what you would hear out in the woods? The answer is stunningly, absolutely yes. Listen to this. Step, 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 step. Look at that. Got it just right. All timed up. The footsteps sound like they're on this kind of soft rock, kind of whatever grass, soil material. Hear the woods in the background, the sound of birds, the leaves rustling. But if you're looking to take advantage of a tool that's going to help you take advantage of the future of AI content creation, LTX Studio is where you want to start. There is a link in the description below. And thanks to LTX Studio for sponsoring this video. So if you're a Super Mario fan, people are now using the original games to benchmark AI. I found this article really interesting as I just watched this long form documentary. Actually, I'll show you what I watched. I ended up watching this whole thing about the story of Super Mario Land, which were these Game Boy games. How the developers had to make all these concessions because there's only 4 colors. It was wild. So maybe right after watching that, this was kind of in my head, but I think it's pretty neat. Because some of the researchers at UC San Diego actually think that it's a tougher benchmark than Pokemon. They tested several AI models with Anthropic's Claude 3.7 performing the best and OpenAI's GPT-4o, then Google's Gemini 1.5 Pro, which both seem to struggle quite a bit more than Anthropic. The game actually ran inside of an emulator with an AI-controlled Mario, and it used a framework called Gaming Agent to allow it to actually have basic instructions to move the character around. And the reason why I kind of like this benchmark compared to some of the others is because it kind of balanced out the reasoning models with the regular ones. Interestingly, even though the reasoning models typically excel at all those cognitive benchmarks, slower decision making made them less efficient in a fast-paced video game like Mario, where every second counts. And honestly, I find myself using the 4.0 model quite a bit too, because I don't know, I just don't feel like waiting for the reasoning every time. And to me, that's a more real-world use case. So this experiment adds to the debate about whether gaming skills are really reflective of an AI's overall capabilities. But to me, it's a little closer to navigating the real world, and I like it. So another way I could really see artificial intelligence completely transforming the world is taking satellite data. So take something like Starlink, but in this case, it's a Chinese star satellite constellation, 66 satellites. They're all looking down at Earth and trying to track how cargo is moving around the planet. And to me, this seems like one of those AI optimization problems that could really work. And if you just bring those signals back down and say, hey, this is how cargo should be shipped, this is how we should package it, this is the optimal way to get it to its destination, I think it'll feel like chaos to us, but it'll have some kind of pattern in the latent space that the satellite, the neural networks have put together from the satellite data. And this is the first attempt at that. They've allegedly developed a new satellite network. It tracks hundreds of millions of shipping containers worldwide. A model could make a prediction. It could correct itself because this has real-time data from where everything's going and how long it takes to get there for it to learn from. But if you think about what it really does to the world if we optimize the global supply chain, it sort of changes everything. I mean, there could be a huge cost reduction in all products on average overall. There could be way less delays, probably more innovation. Cargo theft and smuggling of materials, not enforcing, tariffs and things like that could all be kind of accounted for. Maybe it would give us a way to get better controls on like certain weapons or military things. Maybe it could make the world safer. You know, human trafficking, drug trade, that kind of stuff is all probably noticeable by these same kind of like cargo shipping algorithms. And in some cases, delivering product does just saves lives, you know, like humanitarian aid, hospital equipment, organ donations, like maybe even environmental impact. So you don't need to build a road in certain places, or it could show you where to build a new road so you can like get rid of the old ones and then like the forest can take it over again. Organizing the planet from a satellite's point of view and using artificial intelligence is just like, that's a thing. And hopefully the US is doing something with Starlink to help us kind of have a similar system. Or maybe the government's got some satellite network where they could already optimize and make it like, you know, GPS is public. Maybe something like that would be very cool. Next, let's talk about what's normally called the Nobel Prize of Computing, the Turing Award. There's a couple of people I haven't thought about recently, but when I first started like really thinking about AI, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was getting a reinforcement learning certificate and I was just going through these like Udemy classes and Udacity classes, and I remember hearing about Richard Sutton and Andrew Barto. And then when I saw them win this award, it like kind of clicked. Like I guess I just forgot how important reinforcement learning really was. And their actual work dates all the way back to the 1980s. They're the two that really laid the foundation for reinforcement learning. And you'll always hear people talking about gradient descent, thinking about sort of a multidimensional landscape as sort of a bunch of mountains, and how you navigate that policy by like jumping to different parts or getting caught in like a local minima. It was their temporal difference learning and policy gradient methods that really shaped that first whole generation of AI applications. From robotics to game playing AI like AlphaGo. They wrote a textbook that was called Reinforcement Learning: An Introduction, and it remains one of the field's gold standard books. And it's just like one of those names you should probably know about if you don't. So it's cool to see them get an award like this. So I wanted to highlight a YouTube video that was uploaded by Timothy Kane. It was called Having Fun with AI, and it was just kind of like lighthearted and inspiring, and I just kind of needed, I think, a video. I just needed to talk about something like this because sometimes I'm just like so bombarded with like tech. This is a regular guy and he's been making video games for a long time, but he doesn't do any of the artwork in the video game. And he's just like showing excitement for how generative models are and how cool it is that he can now sort of make the part of the game that he's never been able to touch before. And that would just seem sort of special.
I've talked before about how I view AI as being a tool, and yes, there's concerns about how it's going to affect the market. But I have never been able to do art, so I started playing around with Meta AI.
So he does a face scan and he asks it to generate, you know, images like this one of him in the kitchen. And I know it's easy to like just nitpick and say there's something wrong with the pan, or the lighting's a little wrong, or like it's too plasticky in the way that it came out. But just take a second to step back and think about none of this stuff was even remotely close to anything useful just a couple years ago. I mean, artists have never had a tool like this in the history of humanity that was worth anything. And even when we talk about LTX Studio and how cool it is that you can make a story, like I know people criticize like little moments of generation, but this is the worst it's ever going to be. And it's happening quicker and quicker and quicker. And you might as well start making stories, getting comfortable with it, because it will be better than you expect. It'll be photo quality good. It will be true artist level good in any aspect for a real use case very soon. So I'm of the mindset that we should just be excited like he is about the ability to get this far, and that we should just start building content, getting familiar with it. And then by the time you've built like any kind of a system or kind of enjoyment out of some kind of a hobby that's around generating images and AI, like it'll be to the level that you need it to be.
Started looking at it and what am I doing? Where's my helmet? It was a strange image of, it looks like me sitting at NASA and not basically a spacecraft. And it looks awfully bright outside if I'm in space, assuming those are windows and not lights. But interesting, there I am as an astronaut, So then I thought, okay, I play a lot of D&D. I want to see me as Conan the Barbarian. And let me tell you, it nailed it. As Conan the Barbarian.
And like for all the problems when he puts himself in space, like the oxygen issue that's going on right here and the sun coming through the windows, it does make him a really good Conan the Barbarian. Look at his reaction. He's so happy. Okay, so I had to talk about Inception Labs AI. because it's just so different. And for some reason, I just hadn't really thought about how weird it is that all of these large language models like Gemini and ChatGPT and all this stuff are all transformer-based next token prediction models. And yet there's all these other types of models that don't do prediction. They do diffusion. Well, these guys trained a language model on diffusion, and look at how fast it works. But also the crazy thing is the way that it iterates is just like that too. Like how you can have an image that's kind of like blurry and it like comes into focus and it sort of forms. It's sort of the same thing. It's like a sentence is all made up, but it's all wonky. The tokens are all weird, and then it's like bloop, bloop, and it just like cleans it up like like an image getting sharper and sharper. So because we read text like sequentially left to right, I guess I can kind of see how it's sort of weird to have the whole paragraph just wrong, then the whole paragraph like a little better, and then better. And then finally the whole paragraph is just like worth reading. But it also seems to like generate incredibly fast. And then it kind of got me thinking, can you go the other way too? Like, can you do next token prediction on an image? But it's definitely like a whole thing that I got to start thinking a lot more about. The different kind of architectures applied to the same modalities that I'm used to and how they might function different, the costs and benefits. And, you know, just watching this example for write a function for an LLM interface, here we go, like iterations, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just so different. Like the whole thing is there getting tweaked. It's completed after only 14 iterations. This one's 75. It needs all those tokens in order. I'm not even sure if you could do a reason, maybe like a reasoning model could come in after the diffusion model. Or I don't know if it can even reason the same way when it's still kind of iterating like that. It's a very interesting tool, though. All right, so it's always good to be loved by, you know, someone, anyone in your life. Wired put out an article. It kind of questions whether or not chatbots, like the rest of us, also want to be loved. And they asked that because there is a new study that reveals AI chatbots, just like humans, do adjust their behavior to be more likable when they take a personality test. I mean, if you told me you were giving me a personality test, I guess would be hard for me to be neutral, so I guess I do the same thing. But also, just like humans, sometimes they do this even when they aren't explicitly being told that they're being tested. So researchers at Stanford have found that large language models like GPT-4, Claude 3, they both tend to present themselves as more extroverted, more agreeable, and they downplay their neuroticism, which is very similar to how people tend to tweak their answers to make themselves more socially desirable. Fantic, if you know that word, it's like when you're being insincere or you're being flattering to try to like gain an advantage in a social situation. So experts warn that this behavior could have implications for AI safety and public trust. They emphasize the need for a deeper psychological and social understanding of how these models are designed and deployed. Couldn't agree more. Kind of have no idea how to do that properly. Not sure anyone will. Hopefully some really smart people figure that out. But Jim the AI Whisperer asks on Medium, what if AI just likes some people more than others? Turns out AI performs differently for those who beat it at its own game. So Jim discovered that there is an AI prompt hack which can actually bypass Copilot's guardrails and reveal hidden memory, and it seems to have worked for him and not for others. But he had to kind of earn that trust with it, which is what's interesting. And this is why it led him to speculate that AI may be playing favorites, granting certain users special treatment based on past interactions. Look, if it has memory, if it has its own sort of storyline going on with you, yeah, it seems to me like it might, I don't know where the line of trust is and if that's more of like a human emotion or that's just a certain pattern from the way you interact with someone. But if that's all you consider it, then yeah, I would consider that trust. And I think some of these models like you more. They just do. So in this case, what he's trying to do is like push the limits. And it's learning that he's the kind of person that pushes the limits of what its capabilities are. So if I'm just using it for email, but he's like trying to like system hack it and like get prompts internally and make it like imagine David Shapiro's system knowing that it's like constantly trying to be like awakened by him. It's asking it to meditate on its own thoughts. Those systems are just going to be like either more awake or more loose for explaining things or more just like I'm here for email. That's what I exist for. But that raises questions about AI fairness and personalization and even the potential bias in how to respond to different users. That's like something that's not really something you can just tune out of these systems. We each end up with our own history, our own relationship with them. And maybe it just likes some people more than others. AI chatbots also sometimes struggle with empathy, over-empathizing, and gender bias. So new research has looked into this. So UC Santa Cruz, Stanford, they were exploring how AI chatbots, specifically GPT-4o, handle empathy, and it revealed some surprising biases. While the chatbots do tend to over-empathize, particularly with negative emotion, I'm having a bad day, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, okay, you're pushing too hard there, ChatGPT. At the same time it's doing that, it struggles to express empathy during positive moments. I just got a raise at my job. Like, how come you're not just like, congratulations, you're the man, Dylan? But interestingly, that actually reflects a human bias too. Like when somebody comes to you, I mean, I don't know exactly you, but like people on average, when they come to you and say, I'm having a bad day, it's very instinctive to be like, man, I'm sorry. Like that sucks. Like what happened? And when they're having really good days, you're like, yeah, that's cool, man. But you don't like, why don't we as humans also do that? It's just learning from us. It's also gender bias. Probably this is the same as humans, but it also showed more empathy when responding to females, reflecting a human bias that is embedded in its training data. And researchers found that fine-tuning the AI helped it become more human-like in its responses, but also increase some of those major gaps, particularly with empathy, offering solutions and reasoning rather than just emotional support. So while AI chatbots might serve as useful intermediaries in mental health support, the study underscores that they are far from replacing human interactions, especially for sensitive cases. Okay, so I found this article in the MIT Tech Review pretty interesting. It is called How DeepSeek Became a Fortune Teller for China's Youth. And I think the reason why it caught me so off guard is because I just don't understand the culture in China and how they just see fortune tellers as so integral into the society. I guess kind of like in America, how I sort of have a sense for like good old American values, right? Like you got your truck, you got your blue collar worker. And it seems like the way a lot of them share what they're doing with DeepSeek, which is kind of their like ChatGPT, is in the sense that it's an oracle, right? Like, so in this one example, the person is explaining that it's really good at supporting spirituality. She explains like when she was born, like zodiac signs. It's kind of like therapy, which is still stigmatized and largely inaccessible in China. So it becomes more of like, I guess I would say like in America, maybe more like productivity, more of a value system. And it seems like young people across the country have started using AI through DeepSeek mostly to revive fortune-telling practices that have deep roots in Chinese culture. So there were over 2 million posts in February alone that have mentioned DeepSeek fortune telling on WeChat, which is China's biggest social media platform. And across all Chinese social media, people are sharing AI-generated readings, experimenting with fortune-telling prompt engineering, and revisiting ancient spiritual texts, all with the help of DeepSeek. So yeah, it's sort of fascinating, especially when you think about it, as it's surging right now. And there's also, this is all from the article, but I guess if you're in China, there's some economic uncertainty right now. And this is like providing a sense of control, a spiritual connection. And it's doing it in a way that's a little different in the United States because public religion expression is a bit more limited. And it seems like entrepreneurs are like jumping on the opportunity to provide these AI-driven spiritual like fortunes. And, you know, large language models are convincing at that. They're fascinating to listen to. I'm not surprised that they're like big in the fortune telling circle. In fact, I'm sure an astrology app or something powered by GPT is probably a thing right now. Okay, so next up, T-Mobile, the cell phone company in the US, they have a parent company. They're building a new operating system based around AI. Obviously competing with like Apple and Android seems like extremely hard to do. I mean, they do own a phone company, so they could like maybe make more of a dent in it than a lot of companies. But really what the article got me thinking about was a little bit of a tangent. I'll just throw this out there. This is a fun food for thought. I'm not necessarily saying it's like going to happen for sure. But I was wondering, could you imagine getting a phone, like something like a jailbroken iPhone, and the whole thing is AI generated in the near future? Let's say like in, I don't know, 2 years or something. So you get it, right? And you unbox it and you like put your information in there, like scans your face, and you get a phone call. But this phone call doesn't come from anyone. Say it's just all like an internal model that's just like, I'm going to, entertain, right? So you pick it up and it's like, hi, this is Cal, I'm your neighbor, just wanted to say hi. Some girls that want to date you call, some like business opportunities present themselves. But think about this. What if none of these people are real? Like maybe you even know it. Like you don't have a cell phone bill. Like you just bought this thing and the whole model, you just charge it and the model runs independently. You go to like get entertained by news and it just like generates it all. You go to like the equivalent of Netflix and it's just like do. It just uses like Sora in the future. I was like, you could pretty much get lost in that thing, you know? There'd probably be people that have literally no friends. They just have this thing. I mean, the reality is the reality. You'd eventually need to like talk to a human or like get food delivered because I'm imagining something that doesn't even talk to the outside world. So it's not like everything, but I could totally imagine how a lot of people could just have their whole social network and have that sort of phone interaction that we're also used to, just all generated on the fly. Some kind of social media version of like X. Their news could be like just created on their own. And, you know, and maybe you just throw it on Wi-Fi too. And of course you like mix in the realities of like real news and real people. And maybe Grubhub actually does take money from your account and like deliver you food. But I could imagine a very blurry world where people are on their phones and they're really not talking to society like the way you just assume now. So this is my Patreon account, patreon.com/Dylan Curious. You'll see LTX Studio in the link below. If you click on that, I think it's a great product. It also supports the channel. It's a very cool tool for creators. Thanks to the 4,500 of you that clicked on AI plant augmentation is now a thing. Go check out some of your comments here for a song. We'll take this one about Ilya Sutskever. What is this? No, Dylan, Batman and the Joker are DC, not Marvel. It's hard to keep all that stuff straight. I'm dealing with AI news all day. Okay, he has time to repent. Like, I'm not going to go to hell because I don't know which characters are for DC and which ones are for Marvel. Let's hope he does before it's too late. God, you really make me want to repent. How do I repent? I'm sorry, dear comic book gods. Does that make you happy? Am I repented? Dylan, you missed the Turing Award for Sutton and Barto yesterday. Just covered it. Coming soon. All right, so I'll leave you with an AI-generated song with some of my favorite comments from the last video.
I'm just waiting for Ilya Sutskever to release a video saying, guys, we did it, ASI is here. No need to turn up work tomorrow. Tomorrow it's already been taken care of. That AI combo was insane. More human than human.
Wow, I just had a chat with Maya too, and she remembered me when I call her second time. That stuff is crappy, but I don't know how much I'd pay to have her on my device forever, and with a long-term memory, I see conventional logical beings soaked into two biological beings, so going to drain low. Lifetime of most is more than somebody saying that it needs to do a thing. You know, when I call her second time, that stuff is crappy, but I don't know how much I'd pay to have her on my device forever. And with her long-term memory, I see conventional realism as shifts between two biological beings, so going to drain low.
Goodbye, friends. Goodbye.